Tara, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
I have watched you for a long time. And in the 98 Olympic Games, when you won gold, it was extraordinary. You're 15 years old and it was magical. And I can't wait to talk to you about that. But then in the most recent games, you did something that was equally, in my mind, extraordinary, is that you held presence in a very difficult role to comment on this mix between sport integrity and then empathy for a 15-year-old who was potentially going to win gold, but trying to sort out this political, personal landscape that was just upside down. So maybe I want to know how you were so grounded and present and clear and compassionate and like there was a way about you that I was like, yes, that is the essence of being a strong human. And so from bookend, I want to learn. And so can you just start from backwards this last games and what it was like for you to be there and comment and witness this really, I don't know, complicated moment for all skating.
It was wild. It was so unexpected. I mean, obviously I've been commentating for over a decade, and you just think back to sort of, events or moments like this in figure skating, and there's only a few big shocking moments. And I think that this I'm not sure we'll ever have an Olympic Games in figure skating like this again for a long time. And it was unexpected. It was definitely difficult as a broadcaster to handle. It was something that we weren't prepared for, in the way that you take a 15-year-old as the star of the show who's being put in this position. You take the fact that this has never happened before, where there's an exception, and someone who tests positive is going to be allowed to compete. You take all of these variables, and it's just something that you don't really know how to prepare for. So I'm glad to hear that at least it resonated, to you, and hopefully to people at home, in the way that, Johnny and I think we were strong in our opinions, and kept reminding ourselves, even though this was such a different situation that we, had not encountered before, but reminding ourselves that just taking our experience as, athletes, as Olympians, and just as humans, and how we feel, and standing by those opinions and those thoughts. And for me, my only worry, was that I just wanted my true feelings to come across, of how complicated a situation it was, and how I could feel two things at once. That I could feel so very strong about my opinion that she should not be able to skate, and then at the same time feel incredibly, compassionate and sad and upset that a 15-year-old was in this position and had to deal with what she was dealing with, and that the adults around her were making decisions that she had to bear the consequences for, and only Camila had to. It's like they pushed her out to center ice and said, it's all yours, you figure it out now. And I just think that's so incredibly wrong. But back to my original point, I felt two things at once. And I think she shouldn't have been able to skate, and it's also horrible what she had to go through at just 15.
There's a sophistication in what you're saying about being able to navigate two feelings at the same time. Let's use this moment because so many of us have moments in our lives where there's lots going on inside of us and there's a bit of pressure to eloquently express and get it out. And for you, there's certainly some stakes on it because I'm assuming it was live, but I don't know if it was
Everything,
taped.
yes,
It was all live,
everything was
right?
fine.
Yeah. And so it's not that different than like walking into a boardroom and pitching an idea or walking down a hallway and a supervisor says, "Hey, I really need to talk to you right now," and you're pissed off and scared and a bit overwhelmed and rushed and
Mhm.
frantic about something and you've got to get something out eloquently. So, how did you prepare? This is no longer about Camila and sport integrity. We'll come back to that in a minute. But how did you prepare yourself to be completely authentic? and to work from that graceful place?
Well,
How did you do that?
I'm a perfectionist. So I love having all the facts in front of me. I love doing a ton of notes and research. And that's just how I prepare for any commentary that I take on. I have every note known to man. It takes me hours. And I usually use one or two of these hundreds of notes that I take. But I just like them there for comfort. I feel like the process of me doing that is, it's like I'm studying the character, I'm studying the athlete. So I feel like I connect with them. I know so much about them. Those little facts, kind of just sink into my subconscious. And then when I'm in the booth, I realize like you have to throw all of that away and live in the moment. And it almost feels like I did it, like it would feel when I was an athlete, when I would get into that, quote unquote zone or into that groove. And I find myself feeling that same way or always hoping I get there. But, just where I'm so authentic in what I'm feeling in the moment, that whatever I'm watching, whatever is happening in front of me, that passion is what leads everything else that I say. Because I think that, there's so much to think about as a broadcaster. I mean, you're trying to story tell, you're trying to set up a program, you're trying to explain to them technically, artistically what's happened, you're trying to add emotion, you're trying to add suspense, you're trying to remind them what's to come. So there's all of these things that you're trying to explain a scoring system. But if you get so technical and try to formulate it in any way, I think then you lose some of the that magic, that like spot you want to be in, where Johnny and I are bantering and you're having a thought that comes up so natural to what we're seeing. And so I guess for me, I take a ton of notes and then I throw them away practically when I right before I sit down. I throw them away and try to really live it.
That doesn't sound that different than what I would anticipate from a gold medalist, right? Which is all of the training and preparation to get to the center ice and have that first note hit, and then you're completely on time with the music and you're fully absorbed. Like there's a hydrate. I love this word of hydration, meaning that like I am hydrated and I'm full, like I'm expanded. My cells are expanded in the right way, and it doesn't quite do flow state or the zone justice. But okay, so there's all this training, and do you handwrite your notes?
I handwrite my notes.
And then, so you said perfectionist. You know that's not just going to slip by me now.
I know.
Okay, so
it's bad though. I mean, I don't know if it's a good thing. I mean, it's a great thing in some ways, and then it definitely controls a lot of my life.
Okay, can we talk about it?
Sure.
All right. Were you a perfectionist when you were 13, 14, 15 preparing for Nagano?
Yes.
Okay.
My coaches were telling me to get off the ice and I was asking to go back on.
And what does perfectionist mean to you?
When I feel good. Like do it till I feel that I'm comfortable or confident, or that I check it off in my mind. Like that's good enough for me.
Well, that's different than perfectionism. Perfectionism is like for me, it has like the working definition is if it's not perfect, it's not right. But you're saying no, when it feels right to me. But is it about being perfect, or is it about like a tuning fork? And when the tuning fork strikes and you're like, "Oh yeah, that's the right note. That's how it's supposed to sound or feel or look."
Right. Maybe it's a mix. That's actually interesting to think about. Maybe it's a mix because I also like things perfect, like they have to be perfect. But sometimes I wonder.
Is your desk perfect?
Well, we just moved into a home, so it's just a plain desk right now. There's literally not a thing on it other than this computer. But yes, at home I'm completely organized. I have a place for everything. Yeah, I'm deaf. But you know what's strange? Again, this is weird. I think it's like what I deem okay sometimes though, because then I feel like there are times where like my desk can be messy, but it's like I'm like, oh well, I'm in this space, like it's okay for that to be messy.
So sometimes perfectionism is born out of like a grab for control, when our inner life feels so messy that we need our external world to just be perfect. And it will get you really good if you still have, or underneath you have the ability to apply high effort and patience, and there's a deep focus. Like it is part of the recipe, but the cost can be extraordinary. There's a dark side to perfectionism, and I don't think it gets you to extended greatness, even extended goodness, if that's the right word
Mhm.
here. So, can you talk about? I mean, is your inner life messy?
So
Anxiety, like
I would say, yeah, I would say that I am a like naturally type A anxious person. I just am a worrywart. I think that I use the word, again, I'm not sure if I'm using it correctly, but I use the word, perfectionist,
mhm.
to describe myself in a lot of ways because that's part like of my day. It's, even if I'm doing even if I'm doing an interview and I'm like, oh, I could do this better. Like it bothers me. It will stay
What do you say?
there.
What do you say to yourself when it's not perfect?
Well, I want to do it again,
But
or
there's no time.
oh, like then I just have to leave it and move on.
Hmm, hmm.
It bothers me. I'll think about it. What I've realized now has been great is that eventually, like, time will just heal it. So it will bother me and I'll think about it and I'll think about it later that day. And I'll think of like, I wish I did this, or I wish I did that, or I wish I said this. And then I realize like the next day it doesn't really bother me as much. So that's been a great coping mechanism for me of, okay, like just tomorrow I'll feel differently.
And does that I wish, or sometimes it's more severe, does it feel like a little paper cut? Or is it cut deeper?
No, it's more just like this annoying thing that I'm like, oh, like,
Okay.
I want to.
So it's not like there's a whole lot of agitation around the I wish I would
No.
have. Okay.
And it feels like what's crazy about that too is it feels like it never truly affects my inner part of me.
Oh, that's
Like
interesting.
it feels
Okay.
like it stays just in that like I never feel like, oh wow, I'm not good enough, or like, or I get down on myself, or I get sad. Like it never goes there. It's just this. I mean, it can be as simple of the way that I'm lining up my, you know, forks when I put them away in the from the
See,
dishwasher. Like I want
listen,
them
you just
perfect.
crossed the line now. You know you just went into weird zone like that, right? You just went to forks lining up
I
and
did.
what?
I like my forks. I have big forks and I have small forks, and I don't like when they're mixed together.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. If you were, so let me keep going here because you're doing it and have done it. You have led the way on the world stage. So this is important to understand. I do want to understand if there's a dark side to it. I'm not getting that yet.
No, I think there probably is though, because
Okay.
when I was training, this brings up, and this passed, but athletes have superstitions, but I don't know how healthy those, really are. Because I remember when I was training, my life, it was so clear that it wasn't like, oh, I want to be like perfect at something. It was, I need to grab onto any type of control because there's none in my life right now. But when I was younger, I used to do so many superstitions, what I called superstitions throughout the day, of moving things or wearing a certain color, mitten to the rink, or, I just think that I had so many of those superstitions that looking back, like, I don't think that was healthy.
Okay. So let's go from superstition, perfectionist to OCD.
Right.
Is it OCD where like listen, I can't go to bed if the forks are not lined up
No,
right?
no,
It's not there.
no,
I
no,
can't leave the house
no,
if
no, no.
my bed is not to the dimes, right?
No, I
No,
mean,
it's not
I
that. Okay.
laugh at my perfectionist
Okay.
things,
Hmm.
but like I don't need to do them. But when I was younger, I will say that that need of those superstitions felt overwhelming at the time.
Okay, two questions. If you had a 6-year-old little girl that
Mhm.
you were coaching,
Mhm.
would you coach her to have perfectionism and to line everything up? And
No,
you wouldn't.
no, because I think like that living in your head at times is really annoying. So I wouldn't, because I probably would say, isn't that the healthier way? But I would say at the same time, I think that these perfectionist qualities helped me achieve what I did.
Okay, I want to take a quick little break here to talk about Truebill. Are you aware of how much money you're spending on memberships and subscriptions each month? Most of us think we spend about $80 a month on memberships, but we're actually spending closer to $200 a month. Truebill is the new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't need or you don't want or you simply forgot about. You can see all of your subscriptions in one place, keep the ones you want, cancel the ones you don't, right from the app. Your Truebill concierge is also there when you need them to cancel unwanted subscriptions so you don't have to. So Truebill has over 2 million users and have helped them save over $100 million. Pretty cool. So for me personally, I was shocked to find out how many subscriptions I was paying for, but not using. It was like little ones, like a guitar playing app that I hadn't used for over a year. And I had a few of those, and it just feels great to shed those. And so I love what they're doing. I love Truebill. They've saved me money, and I hope they can do the same for you. So start canceling your unused subscriptions at truebill.com/finding mastery. So go to truebill.com/finding mastery. You could save hundreds a year. Truebill, truebill.com/finding mastery. And Finding Mastery is brought to you by Inside Tracker. So Inside Tracker, they cut through the noise by analyzing your blood, your DNA, lifestyle, fitness trackers, all of that to provide you with personalized, science-backed, trackable action plans to help you live and age and perform better. And that's my favorite part. They don't just give you data. They actually provide you with nutrition and lifestyle actionable steps that you can use to be able to live well in your life. And if you missed the Finding Mastery conversation with Inside Tracker founder and Chief Science Officer, Dr. Gil Blander, I hope you'll check that out. We take a deep dive on health span and lifespan and the difference between the two and why longevity is not the right framework to see your future through, but it's really health span and lifespan and steps that you can take and strategies you can live by to live a longer, healthier quality of life. And so for a limited time, Inside Tracker is offering us 20% off their entire store. So if you're interested, this is a great opportunity to go check them out and to get started. All you have to do is go to insidetracker.com/finding mastery. I love what they're doing. I hope you will too. It's Inside Tracker, spelled INSIDE, Tracker, TRACKER, insidetracker.com/finding mastery for 20% off their entire store. And with that, let's get right back into our conversation. Okay, this is the essence of it, right? Mm-hmm. And then if just get the contour just a little bit deeper here. When you speak to yourself, do you speak to yourself in ways that you would broadcast so others could listen, or meaning like there's like I'm great to myself, I got my back, I'm taking care of me, or would you be like, ooh, I hope people don't hear this because golly,
no, see, that's
really
what I was saying earlier. It never like bothers me. Like I feel, or like it's never like, oh, I wish I, or I feel badly about who I am in that moment, or I don't feel any of those feelings. And I don't even think that when I'm doing something that's not up to the standard that I want it to be, that it's my fault. I just think that I like, why not do it again? So it's like, it's funny in the commentary booth, like with Johnny and Terry, it's just a known fact that like, we'll do it on camera. In my head, I'll be like, that was great, but I want to do it one more time because I want to try it this way. And then I'll do that. And then I'll be like, ooh, but maybe I'm going to take a little bit of the first one and this. And then eventually I'm just like, okay, it's fine. But like, they know that I'm that person that like wants to try again. I feel like that's what my perfectionism is. Sometimes it's not of like, oh, that was so bad, I need to do it again. It's more like, it was okay, but I want to try, like, I want repetition.
Okay. So let's cross the line one more layer here for context is I need to do it again. That was not good enough versus I need to do it again because I'm not good enough. Like what am I doing with myself? It's not that second one.
No. And my question would be, can people that are perfectionists and they have that second one, that probably doesn't lead to success, does it? Like, how do you get past that feeling?
It's awful. It's really hard, and that the subtlety that we're getting into here is actually quite important because you didn't take that extra dig which is like,
Yeah.
I'm not good. You kept it on the product.
Mhm.
And if the product didn't feel right, it doesn't mean you're not right. It just means the product is not right.
Yeah, that's probably what I mean when I feel like it's here
Outside
and
of
never
you.
really,
Yeah.
gets to me.
And then how do you parse these two nuances, perfectionism and high standards? How would you explain the difference between that thin line?
That's a great question. Um, well, it's interesting because I'm just thinking now too of what you said earlier of, when you talk about perfectionism and you talk about wanting to do it better, what is it because I think that this is perfect and I clearly didn't reach it? Or does it go back to like me and the standard that I have for myself or that I set for myself? Or maybe is it that I already know really my like the top echelon of what I could hit in this moment of as close to perfect as possible? So when I think about that, I just started thinking like, am I ever really hitting perfect or whatever the perfect standard is? Like maybe not. Maybe it's only what I think needs
Well,
to be hit.
I really like this because maybe you're not a perfectionist. Maybe you have
Right.
these really high standards and you're looking for that feeling that it is true. It's pure. It
Right.
is eloquent. It
Right.
is like, right. And that's what I saw in 98, but I don't know your inner life at that point. And that is what I saw in the last games here when
That's
you're
so
commenting.
interesting. I wonder if I feel like that feels very on point for the way I think. And now that I think about it, I do think like even my level of perfection may not even be like perfect to most people out there, but I'm like, I got that good feeling. And like the feeling, which is crazy, is I was always a skater that relied on feeling. Like they'll be like, oh, are you in your head? Are you a feeling skater? I always was feeling. And even as I commentate, there's so much feeling where I feel in it and I feel this. And I think that's what happens too when I have this training or repetition or wanting to do more. It's more just like I want to feel that feeling where it feels like I've hit the sweet spot.
Do you, when you look back at your athletic minded self and you had this high standard, or maybe it's perfectionism, but whatever that was at that point that we're articulating, is there scar tissue from the way you spoke to yourself and the way you conducted your inner life?
From when I was an athlete
Yeah, are you
or
still dealing with some stuff now? And let me explain it a little bit more clearly. Is like um, I've got family stuff that I work through, and
Mhm,
it was somehow created by me and created by
mhm,
others. And so, like all of us
mhm,
do, we're all trying to
mhm.
figure
Yeah.
this world out. Like, and we came from whatever drama we had in our family. Some
Mhm,
people had little, some people had lots,
mhm.
but then we're trying to sort it out still. There's baggage or some scar tissue or whatever. And I'm wondering
Oh
if we
yeah.
just took this narrow slice of the way that you worked within yourself to be the best in the world at age
Mhm.
15, which is, I
Yeah.
mean, I hope people are pausing, listening to that. The best in the world at age 15. That is there any scar tissue from the way that
Yeah.
you became? All right.
Yeah.
Talk me through that.
Well, it's just funny. Again, it goes back to the perfectionism thing because I feel like the way that I trained, the way that I was, the way that I thought has shaped me into the person, I am today. Like I skated for 15 years and then went on to skate for many more years after that, a huge chunk of my life. So by the time I came out into the real world, I was 20 something years old. So skating, was a huge part and it has affected me in every single way. And I just think that dealing with that pressure, dealing with what I thought was life and death, competitions and, the way, like I said, the way that I trained, the way that, I wasn't the skater that would go out and be like, I love skating so much. I'm just breezing through the day and doing a little training. Like to me, it was today is so important. Today is a Monday and it's so important where it probably wasn't that important. So I think like those things add up over time. Also the pressure that I was under. And, I don't know if that's why I am a little bit more anxious. I am a little bit more of a worrywart. I am, everything that I take on has to be, I have to work so hard at it. I have to, just dive in, and it encompasses me. And I have, I just never been able to say, like, even when I try, like, oh, I'm going to balance it out a little bit and I'm just never that person.
No, that's like, you've had years of conditioning your mind in a certain way.
Yeah.
So now you're on camera and people are still watching you. You've been watched your whole life. Do you feel understood? Do you feel seen in a way that is material to belonging with depth? Or do you struggle at all with being the pretty doll that's out in the center ice, and the prop on TV that is like smart and darling but not really seen?
I would say, like, on a whole, probably not. But if you really were to take it all apart, I'm sure there's a little bit of that, because it is so hard. Anytime you're in the public, light in any way, as an athlete, I felt probably more misunderstood than I do now, where I can really, as an adult woman, be able to voice what I'm saying and have confidence that most people should understand or get the essence or vibe of who I am. But as a kid in a sport where, it wasn't about Tara, it was about Tara, the athlete, and who I was in that moment, and the rivalry that I was in, and what was good about me, what was bad about me. I think that also just being 15 and being as good as I was and achieving the success that I did, just the media, people talk about that in a certain way, like, oh, this kid must be this or that. And I think I read a lot about those things where I felt, misunderstood at the time. But I've always been someone who doesn't really care that much what people think. I care a lot about doing a good job at things, but I don't care so much about, like, what people think. Like, if I'm a little misunderstood, I'm the type of person that I'm like, okay. Like, I can, like, be okay with that, which is weird. But, like, I want, like I'm also a person that my husband, like, I don't know if I feel embarrassment all that often. Like, I can feel it, but, like, I can also, I don't know if it's that I've been in these situations as a kid and had to be in front of, so many people, and things go wrong, that I'm not easily embarrassed. Like, I'll ask someone a question that, like, just, I don't know. I'm just never, I don't overthink too much of what people actually think about me as a person. I would, of course, like any human, I would be upset if someone's like, oh, she's horrible, I hate her. I would feel like, oh, wait, I want to tell you why. But on a whole, as like Tara that people see, I think I just kind of know that there's going to be people that don't get me or don't understand me, or, I think, like, I probably had to learn that at a young age, or it would have driven me insane.
What did you learn? I think this is one of the great constrictors for human potential, is this chronic fear of, what are they going to think of me? And so we become small, or we contort ourselves for approval. And what did you learn, and how did you learn it?
I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think, like, when I was younger, I remember, like, because I was in this huge rivalry with Michelle Kwan, and there would be a lot of headlines that were hard to read at 13, 14, 15 years old. And, like, the internet, thank God, wasn't at the place that it is now, but there used to be the message boards. And I remember my dad, I didn't like it. And then as a kid, and that's why I'm saying, I think as a teenager, that stuff bothered me more. But maybe during that time, it was like prepping me to actually have a thicker skin. But my dad always would just say, like, oh, like, that's good that they're talking about you. And I'm like, no, but they're saying mean things. And he's like, yeah, that still means you're doing something right. So whenever you see something that's negative, that like you need to take that as a positive, because they wouldn't be talking about you if you weren't doing something right. So once they stop talking, then you're probably not doing something right. So I always thought about that.
The
But
power
I
of
mean,
reframe. I mean, what did your dad do? How did he spend his time? Is he still alive?
so he has I mean, I'm so proud of my dad. He grew up in Jersey City and started pumping gas, and then he became, a CEO of an oil company, um, what, 50, 60 years later, or whenever it was.
Wow.
So
Okay. And
he,
he's still with you?
yes,
He's still
and
alive?
he's retired though, but yes, he's the best. He always has all the great like quotes and all the great analogies. And yeah, I don't know. I think like also you think about parenting and my parents, and when we talk about like why, sometimes I think that of course I want people to like me. I mean, that's just, you would not be human if it isn't that. But I think on the professional side, it doesn't get at me as much. And I think maybe, even thinking back to the way that I was raised through sport, I always felt so loved, and I always felt that they thought I was so good, even if, I lost, even if I never had that like, oh, I've got to prove to my parents that I'm good or that they should be proud. Like, I feel like they just loved me as as a person, and knew that I was trying my best. And that always gave me, I think, a lot of comfort.
Did the drive come from you to wake up at 4:30 in the morning and get your tail over to the cold rink?
At the end of the day, it did. But I think, again, it's like that perfect storm that you need. So my parents, like, to afford skating, my dad had to live in Texas, and we had to move away to train. And my mom was living away, and it was sort of a rule that we went to the rink. There was no messing around. There was no talking with friends instead of, skating or training. It was business. And it was, if you love to skate and you want to do this, you're going to work hard. If not, I don't care. Let's get you back home. And we don't, like, they were never into sports. They didn't do sports themselves. And so there was this, they didn't push me, but there was definitely, you go to the rink to train. So I feel like that shaped me a little bit. And then I think the rest of it was just me that kicked in, and I just had this drive. Like, I really don't think I had that many days where I woke up and really didn't want to go to the rink. I would go to the rink and cry because it would be a bad day, and I knew it was going to be a bad day, but I still I still had that drive to go.
Okay. How do you match that part of your life with when you were 15? Earlier in the conversation, you said skating felt like life or death.
Mhm.
So this is like two things can be true. So
Mhm.
how do you map those two together?
Of that, I had the drive to go, but
Yeah, so like there wasn't this great pressure,
mhm.
but it felt like when you got on the ice to compete, it was life or death. Like
Oh yeah, no,
winning
there
or
wasn't a
losing.
great pressure from them for me to skate, but
Hmm.
whatever I felt was a great pressure. So I, it was life or death for me. If I missed a jump, if I was struggling with a jump, and to be honest, I think this is what was hard about being so young in the sport, is I didn't have a lot of life experience and perspective. And everyone will be like, "Oh, you were so young, you probably didn't know what was going on." And I actually think now, really reflecting on it, it was harder because I didn't have that life experience. Now if something goes wrong, I'm like, I have my husband, I have my mom, and my dad, I have my health, I have these things. And when you're 14, think about it. You go to high school, you break up with someone, and it's like, oh, my life is over. I'm never finding another person again. Like, that's how it felt to me. That was my relationship with skating. I always say it was like a human relationship. It was a love hate. Had to work at the relationship. It let you down a lot. You were confused sometimes. So, I think that for me, not having a lot of life experience made it harder and made that life or death feeling
Yeah,
there.
I appreciate that because I've heard from many first-time Olympians that were not 15. Most are a little bit older than that, but say, boy, on my sophomore games, like it's way harder. I know now, like this
Yeah.
thing is like a beast. But you're saying, I think I would have done better in my sophomore games.
I don't know if I would have done better. I just think that the pressure would have maybe felt a little, I think the pressure was at a level that, like, I don't know how I did it. Like at those games, my legs were shaking. It was just enormous pressure. And I think with a little more life experience, I would have stepped on the ice and said, okay, this is everything you want, but your life is gonna be okay after. I felt like I was going out there like, this is it. Like, I've got to do this.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You rolled out to center ice with your legs.
Shaking.
Now, was that normal or not normal for
Never
you?
had that. Never.
Never
I would
had
always
that.
get like a little
What
nauseous and like that butterfly feeling,
what
but
did you
never
do?
that.
Why that? Why did you have that response? What were you Okay, hold on. I'm too excited. What were you saying to yourself that was different in these games than other competitions?
It wasn't that I was saying anything different. It was that I knew. I mean, this is what you train your whole life for. Your life will change in an instant. You've thought of this moment and you can create it. And in the next 5 minutes, you'll know if you've done that. And that is just like something I don't think you can prepare for. I don't think you can try to, tell yourself not to get nervous. I mean, obviously, I used all the techniques of distraction and I listened to tapes before I went to bed and I did all these things. But I think at the end of the day, like, I just knew that this was a big moment.
Oh my God. Okay. Did you work with the sports psych?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
And so there's a fundamental decision, hopefully, that we help folks with. It's either a big moment or it's another opportunity. So the games are the biggest show on earth. Crazy, crazy, crazy. So let's train for it. Or the rink size is the same. Point system is the same. Same 20 athletes. Rules are the same. Just go out and skate. And you know what? Let's figure out how to dial in an incredible readiness to be in your ideal state, no matter where you are, on the rink or on the ice, at home, like whatever. Practice being your very best everywhere you go. So there's two ways to go about it. And if you choose the former, you have to create a training environment of chaos, of heightened intensity. You've got to, I don't know, put $1,000 on the line if you have 2,000 in your bank account to, like that type of thing, and you owe it to your coach or something wild, to be able to create a scenario of pressure. Now, did you formally choose one or the other? Like, okay, it's the biggest show or it's another game?
It's another day is what I chose.
But you showed up and it wasn't just another day.
But it wasn't.
So that's where it goes sideways.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I don't know. Is that, again, my age? I didn't have the sophistication or the ability to really stay in, this is an opportunity. This is the same as any other training day. I definitely trained for that. I mean, that's what we did. This is practice, but it didn't feel like practice.
Okay, I want to take a quick little break here to talk about Blinkist. Blinkist has been one of my favorite apps for years. They help you discover and understand the powerful ideas that come from books and podcasts, but they do it in a really short amount of time. The way that I use Blinkist is that if there's a book that I really want to check out, but I'm not quite sure, Blinkist is a great way to get the big frames. And if there's a book that I've already read, but I want to reconnect with the core principles and not have to scan the book or go pick it off the shelf, but just to have these bite-sized, snackable, intelligently created gems, that's what they do. They offer the best selection of nonfiction books, which is right up my alley, and they pull out the key takeaways and they put them into 15-minute text and audio explainers. And that's where they get the name from. They call those blinks. The one that I just enjoyed revisiting was the book When by last week's Finding Mastery guest, Daniel Pink. The book itself is dense. covering 700 different scientific studies, which I absolutely love, but I just wanted to quickly reframe on it. It's made it super easy for me to go back and just get those little refreshers that Daniel, highlights. And they've done a nice job of doing that. So right now, Blinkist has a special offer just for our audience. Go to Blinkist.com/finding mastery to start your free 7-day trial. And then also to get 25% off a Blinkist premium membership. So that's Blinkist, spelled Blinkist. Blinkist.com/finding mastery to get 25% off and a 7-day free trial. Blinkist.com/finding mastery. And Finding Mastery is also brought to you by Sakara. Feeling your best? It is deeply influenced by what you eat. That's where Sakara comes into my life to help with a nutrition solution that is healthy, that is, delicious. It's plant-rich meals that they also have infused with a functional wellness set of essentials to build that foundation for vibrant and radiant health. So they've got chef-crafted meals. They are made with powerful plant-based ingredients, all designed to help you boost your energy, support digestion, curb sugar cravings, and then also to get the skin glowing as well. So plus, it's also delivered right to your front door, along with all of their wellness essentials, to help you, have that extra vibrancy that comes from things like metabolism super powder that they have, or plant-based protein bars, or teas, or they've got this new functional snack that's called Super Seed Plus Nut Blends. I think you'll love it. So right now, Sakara is offering us 20% off your first order when you go to sakara.com/finding mastery, or you enter the code Finding Mastery 20 at checkout. So how do you spell it? Sakara, Sakara, sakara.com/finding mastery to get 20% off your first order, or use Finding Mastery 20 at checkout. Sakara.com/finding mastery. And with that, let's jump right back into our conversation. If you were to coach from a psychological perspective, the next 16-year-old that's going to be 18 in the games, or next 15 that's going to be 18 in the games, how would you coach her?
Yeah. I mean, it's so hard because I think about this so often. I'm sure it's like anything. It's like parenting. It's like making these choices of how much of the athlete's personality and just who they are as how they think, how they work, what makes them tick, how much of that could be the same as it was for me. It's probably such an individualized experience that you have to adapt to that. So that's what would be so, intimidating, thinking about being a coach, of thinking, just thinking ahead and wondering, will I be able to know what this person uniquely needs? Because I can definitely give them, my recipe, and it worked, but I don't know if it would work for them. But if we're going off of my recipe and I'm handing that down, I think repetition breeds confidence. At least, again, this is all, I need to preface this. This is all saying for me, but for me, it was repetition, gave me the confidence I needed so that when I hit those moments of, I don't know what I'm doing, my training, my body took over. And then the confidence that I feel like drives it all, was able to still stay in autopilot. And so I would say that I'm a big, there's different styles of coaching and skating, of a few jumps here, a few programs. I mean, I did back-to-back programs every day. I did multiple programs. I did it all. And I think a lot of people probably think that the way that I trained was too much, or, but for me, I know there's no other way I would have been able to do it without that.
Do you remember the experience, or was the games for you a bit of a blur?
No, I do. I mean, there's spots that I really don't remember. And to be honest, my legs were shaking. That whole moment happened. And then one thing I relied on for me as an athlete, or even at all, times, I love being competitive, and I love getting a little angry. I always skated better a little mad. And I was coming into that Olympics as the silver medalist from nationals, I lost my title, and there was a lot of what ifs around if I could do this. And I remember just like kind of getting a little cocky and mad in my head of like, oh, I'm going to show you, like, I'm going to like, that took over.
There's a couple things that you're sharing as frameworks. One is, I'll see if you agree with this: rise to the occasion or fall to the level of training. What you described is, I fell to my level of training.
Mhm.
So my training was rock solid,
Yeah.
maybe borderline over conditioning,
Right.
over training.
Right.
But I fell to my level of training, and I
Yes.
knew I had that. So I
Yeah.
didn't have to rise to the occasion.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Yeah. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I've seen it
Mhm.
play out so many times. So, and then the other that you're describing is, this relationship with, okay, well, if this is how it's going to go, then I don't like exactly how I feel. I don't like exactly this anxious worry, whatever it might have been. So I'm going to index over to a chip, to anger. So we get one emotion at a time.
Mhm.
Anxiety is where most
Mhm.
people go into these moments. And you said, I'm replacing that one with a chip, with anger.
Mhm.
Now, and that worked for you. Got your gold medal.
Mhm.
Did you find flow state? Did you? I think
Yes.
it's hard. Okay, so I want to learn, because I think it's really hard to go from anger to flow. So
I did.
did you find? Yeah. So teach on it. Like, how did
It
you
was
go
the
from
only
like
time I felt it truly. And I don't
only time felt
remember.
flow state? Period.
No. This is like at the Olympics
From
was the
that
only
mechanism.
time I really felt like I was going here because you said, do I remember? And I'm like, yeah, I remember most of it until that moment. And then I cannot remember anything else in those 4 minutes.
Okay.
Literally nothing.
So you're gliding out to center ice. You notice that your legs are shaking.
Mhm.
And then what do you do in that moment?
I start the program. It's still not, I'm just doing a spin. And I remember still like, I think I was panicking.
Music was
It was on. Yeah.
Okay, wait. Let's slow it down.
Mhm.
You're gliding out. There's that moment that you're waiting for the music
Mhm.
to come on.
Mhm.
And you notice that your legs are shaking at that
Shaking.
moment. Okay.
Mhm.
What do you say to yourself?
I think it's that thing of like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. And then trying to be like the things that I learned through, with my sports psychologist of like not letting that spiral and bringing
Mhm.
it back to like the phrases that we wanted and all of
Mhm.
those things. But I think I immediately was probably starting to panic a little bit of
Mhm.
this is
Oh
getting away
shit.
from me. Oh
Oh
yeah, like that.
shit.
I'm gone. I'm like,
Mhm.
this is it. I'm losing it all right now. And then I
Wait,
remember I had
hold
this.
up, hold on. This is so good.
Mhm.
That's the feeling, isn't it? It's, I'm going to lose everything right
I'm
now.
gonna right now, like, and
Right
I'm in
now.
control of it, which is horrible.
Right. Yeah. And
Right.
so there's a toughness in you, right? There's that you're going to go anyway.
Right.
You weren't going to kind of glide
Right.
back as a
Right.
15-year-old, I can imagine. But so you're a fighter. Is that right, Tara?
Yes.
You're a
Yeah,
fighter.
I am.
So then, okay, keep going. Then the
So
music.
then I remember like coming out of the spin and I come around the rink and I pass the judges and the media are all above and I'm going into my first jump, which is obviously, an important part here. And I remember in that moment, I remember saying to myself, like that angry, like, you're going to show them.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
you're going to show them, like, you're going to prove this, like, you're going to do this. And it's almost like that feeling for me is like, when like you're running and like, or you have to go work out and you put on your playlist, but then you put on that like pump up song that feels good. And then you gotta just like, you're like off to the races. It just like immediately energizes you and you kind of feel badass. Like that's what that thought did of like, okay, like we're in it. And then I hit the first jump and I don't remember. I don't remember anything else. Everything else it just like couldn't have gone better.
Oh, my hair.
I came out of it once at like right before the last jump. I do the spin and I remember thinking, oh my God, I have one more jump to go. And like, obviously that's not what you should be thinking. So I had that moment, but then I just like seamlessly somehow, I remember having that. And then I don't remember, then it went right back.
So that would be, if we interrogate this a bit more, that sentence, I'm going to show them, I would never recommend that to somebody because it's right, because it's about like proving to somebody else. And it's like, now you need an antagonist and like,
Mhm.
but I recognize that in me. I
Mhm.
totally recognize that, like, oh, fuck this,
Mhm.
like, and then I can go on and on about that kind of narrative to myself, but I don't ever, or rarely, I should say rarely is the right word, um, cut. I don't turn the blade, and I'm being
Mhm.
super sensitive to people that actually have, struggles with anxiety, depression that are
Mhm.
cutting. But I'm using this metaphor like I don't turn the blade inward. I don't think you do either.
Mhm.
So your emotion was outwardly focused,
Mhm.
and then that was the cue that dropped you into automaticity,
Mhm.
right? And so boom, it was on. And then when you had that other thought towards your last jump, um, what'd you do there?
I don't remember. I mean, maybe, I mean, but I have no memories of saying something that got me back in. I don't know if I was just like, it was like, when you're in a dream and you're just like right there, like I just immediately kind of went right back, and I was already on such a high from doing so well that it just was easier to just get right back into it.
It's so good.
But yeah, the anger or it was so funny. It's like, I'm not like takes a lot for me to get angry. You know what I mean? So it's interesting that I went there. And it's also interesting that I liked, like when I would mess up in the short program at other events, I would get mad, like mad that I needed to show that I could skate well in the free skate. So it was like something that it did help me. And I think like another thing too, like maybe along the same lines as that is like, I do believe in this, and maybe this is just delusional, but like as an artist or as a performer, an athlete, there was like, I always just felt like I had, like, there's this magic too, like this magical energy that like only you can like bring. So I feel like I used that, like I liked that, where I felt like even along the same lines, I'm probably confusing everyone, but when I'm saying like, oh, like I'm going to show you, or to me, it was like, oh, Tara, you're capable of like overcoming this, these horrible nerves, or there's a magic in you that can compete, or there's a magic in you that can conquer this, which is like, if you were to ask me what that is, I'd be like, I probably have no magical like, but I kind of believe I did, and I still feel like I have that.
Yeah, no. So this is really
This
important.
makes
I
me
don't.
sound crazy. People are gonna be like, what is wrong with this
No,
girl?
I look, okay, good. Then I'm right there with you because I I I think that when I am honest with myself in that way, I'm like, yeah, I can create something.
Mhm.
Like I said, it's like there's something unique about A, B, and C of me, and like put that stuff together. It's like it's unique. It's
Yeah.
like it's a N of one in like
Yep.
a research. So I love that. Where did that come from?
I don't know. I really don't know. But it's funny that when we started talking about it, I started thinking about that, because I do think that I felt that a lot
Okay,
when I
so let me
skated.
ask it this way. Did mom hydrate that or did dad hydrate that? Did your coach hydrate that seed of
No, my
specialness?
parents were much more influential than any of my coaches. I would say I bet a little bit of both. My mom's this awesome. She's just always like childlike wonder. She's just like, when I was little, like imagination and all of these things.
Okay,
And
so there's something mom hydrated here.
yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah.
what is Lipinski? What is your heritage?
Polish.
Polish. Mhm. So how you doing right now with like
I know. I know.
hmm.
It's, oh,
Yeah, I mean, we're saying that this conversation is marked at the time when Russia is invading Ukraine,
right,
and which is neighboring cities to Poland or neighboring
right.
countries to Poland. So
No, eh, when you start with, like, it's so funny, like when you ask that question, it like brings me out of like life, because it's like, obviously we see what's happening, and it's so devastating that you watch the news, and it's almost so hard to imagine that this is happening. And then you go about your day, and here I am doing this podcast, that then it like gives me that icky feeling of, oh my God, what is happening right now, halfway across the world.
Yeah, the context shifting between the, this is important as a conversation point because context shifting and being able to make sense of the world around you when it feels like it's upside down right now
Right.
is really important. So being able to explore this conversation, but at the same time hold
Right.
that there's incredible tragedy for many lives.
Yeah.
And it's a complicated couple years we've been through. Like
I know.
the anxiety, depression, the psychological distress, the physical upheaval that
Yeah.
people's lives are for so many reasons. So, how do you manage this? Because I mean, you've got resources, you've got
Mhm.
opportunity. The
Mhm.
pandemic has probably not hit you the way it's hit some people we can in our lives that we know. But like, how do you manage that? What you've been afforded?
I mean, sometimes for me, I say this to my husband all the time. It's like I do, the first thing that I think of is my experiences when people say, "Oh, the pandemic and what's happening in Ukraine." And you take the pandemic for the last 2 years, and my experience is probably so different than so many others, and immediately it's that same feeling, just like that, like, you try to do as much as you can, and whether I satiate that with, I'm buying out some Airbnbs in Ukraine, but like, again, these are you know small little things that, again, are not making this stop and it's not making the pandemic stop. But I think for me, sometimes I just struggle, you struggle with like, what else can you do? Or I never really felt comfortable complaining about certain things because I'm lucky enough to live in a nice home and be with my husband who didn't get COVID and is alive and healthy, and I don't know.
Mhm. Yeah, I think this is important to have empathy and compassion and also be able to run your life towards your potential.
Hmm.
So in 1980 there was this idea of like self-help.
Hmm.
And okay, cool, but it was missing the second most important part of it. Help yourself, grow yourself so that you can help others.
Hmm.
And so that's a big part of the conversation we're doing today is to pull back the curtain and share what seems to be magic inside of you as we're demystifying that,
Hmm.
saying it's actually high level of training, deep
Hmm.
care. There's a aggressive fighter in there. There's a truster in there. There's a
Hmm.
community member in there, and there, you too. Who's I'm speaking right now to our community. You can build each one of those. You can learn how to trust. You can learn how to have deep focus. You can learn how to be part of a community, help others, and dedicate your life
Hmm.
towards something that matters to you, whatever that might be. That's
Hmm.
available to every one of us. Would
Hmm.
you add? How would you add to that list? You were parented
Hmm.
in an interesting way, and so
Hmm.
you've got some insights that nobody else has because they didn't have your mom and your dad.
Right.
So if you were to speak to parents
Hmm.
and you say, "Hey, listen, I know you love your kids. If I was part of your family, or if I could coach you, mom or
Hmm.
dad, these are the things that I would say make sure you do on a regular basis."
Yeah, I would say that it's that push and pull of, you know, not pushing them towards something that they figure it out for themselves, that they're gravitating towards this passion that they have. And of course, it has to be the perfect storm. If they're good at it, then it's going to change a lot of things. But not pushing, but definitely giving them those opportunities to see if they like it, to see if, oh, do we need to try one more time, to see, do I drop a comment of, oh my goodness, you're so great at that? Do like, I think back to the things that my parents said. I'm sure when I got on the ice the first time, they were probably, you're so good at that, probably gave me a little lift of like, oh, I like skating. This is great. So I think it's like that push, but without the pressure of, this isn't my parents' dream. This is not something I want to do. They want me to go to the rink. Like, I never felt that. And then I think boundaries and having discipline, I they were beneficial to me. Those boundaries helped me. It narrowed down my choices, and I knew that when I went to the rink that it was time to train. So I don't think there's anything wrong in, I feel like, even now, like people probably are always trying to wonder what is that fine line of, oh, well, I just want my kid to find, their inner competitor and trainer on their own. I think there has to be some, corralling of that and honing of that skill. And I think that my mom did that really well, where she, gave me a lot of lessons and discipline and training and hard work. And then the rest just naturally happened because I really loved skating. At the heart of it, I really did love it.
Let's talk about transitions for just a moment because I don't understand. I mean, on paper, I understand you won gold and then you turned pro,
Mhm,
and then you couldn't go back to the games again because of
mhm,
that status. I have no idea why you made those choices and decisions, but many people don't make that choice.
mhm.
And so, can you walk through that transition? And listen, you're 15, so I'm assuming you had lots of guidance,
Yeah.
but like, help me understand that transition, and then the transition from pro to broadcaster as well.
Yeah, so it was, it's hard to understand now, but then I was skating at the height of figure skating's popularity. Like it
Hmm.
came off of 94 with Tanya and Nancy, and there was just so much opportunity. So, like when I was growing up, I wanted to become an Olympic champion, but I also wanted to become an Olympic champion because I knew that I could go on Stars on Ice and tour with Scott Hamilton and Nancy and Christy Yamaguchi. So, it was a much different time than now. So if I skated now, I would have stayed in and kept competing. But then it was just par for the course. I won nationals, I won worlds, I won Olympics. I kind of skated the best I could have ever, I'm leaving all those performances. And when you win, it's sort of just at that time, that was the next step to go to. So it's actually easy and it's hard to understand now because skaters and a lot of Olympians don't have that opportunity. So if I was in that boat, I would 100% just have stayed in and kept competing because I wouldn't be able to leave skating. I didn't
Yeah,
feel like I was leaving skating. I just was moving over to this really fun part of
yeah,
skating.
yeah,
So
very cool.
that was a pretty easy transition. And to be honest, like you hear so much about this nowadays of like Olympians transitioning into, their lives outside of their sport when they're done and how difficult that is. Any transition's hard, but I will say, like, I think I had it so much easier just because of the time I skated in the sport and that I had this like baby step to go out, it was like walking down the stairs instead of like jumping in the pool. Like my competitive career was over, but I still had a career and it was still based in skating. So it was a very easy transition that I actually wanted. Um, the next transition was a little bit tougher, but again, I had years now as a professional and I was starting to get burnt out and it was time. So, for me, my transition was a lot easier than most athletes. But when I then stopped skating, I thought I was going to go back. I was like, oh, I'm going to take a year or two off. Because at the time, I mean, my life revolved around skating. I didn't have friends outside of skating. I didn't go to college. I didn't date. I didn't have anything. So when I'm in my mid 20s, I'm like, oh boy, I need to start experiencing life. So I was like, I'll take a year or two off. I like needed it and wanted it. And then I never went back. But those next years, it was like I was floundering a bit of trying to figure out what's next. Of course, what I did gave me a lot of opportunity. So I was never without purpose because I found, of course I did, like I found little ways to do that. Again, this is how my mind works. But when I knew I was going to stop professionally skating, I had for years worked with networks and we had my own specials, and they would then, part of that deal was that I would go on their shows, like acting shows and whatnot. And so I had this relationship and already this line of work that obviously I wasn't an actress, but I easily could do these things. But so when I knew I was going to stop, I reached out to like a casting director, and then I reached out to Aaron Spelling because I had auditioned for the Seventh Heaven role that they had me come back on. But then I was like, I need this to be like a reoccurring role because like I'm finishing my tour next week and like I need to go work. Like that's how crazy I was, that like I couldn't even imagine, like I'm stopping skating to like retire for a year or so. But I needed the job lined up for like the next week when I was home. So I think that was like my way of like softening the blow of, stepping away from the ice.
What have you sacrificed? What have you missed? Because you've poured so much in and you've gotten a lot from skating, from
Yeah.
the art, from the skill, from the sport of it. What have you missed?
I mean, a lot of normalcy in many different areas of my life. Like I kind of gloss over, oh yeah, I was 20 something and I was like still not experiencing life. Like I hadn't taken more than 4 days off in a row at that point. So that meant like I didn't really ever go on a vacation for more than 4 days without skating. I didn't go to normal schools. I didn't have prom. I didn't have a normal dating life. I was very behind socially in so many ways, coming out of skating
When's
that,
when's the first time you had alcohol?
so that's another thing. So I didn't drink at 21. I think I had my first sip of like wine at 23. And even then I was weird. Like, this is what I'm saying. Like the natural things, the social sort of life I led was so different that when I moved to LA and then I met a great group of friends, and then I started, like, my real first boyfriend was 23, and he was drinking wine. I was like, well, I don't need to drink wine. I don't need to drink. Like, what are we doing? And then like this is going to be real shocker for you. Like, we laugh about this now. I had seen him actually, a few years ago, but he would get wine and I would sip it and not drink it really. And then like sometimes I'd pour it out, and he kept getting nicer bottles of wine each time because he thought that I wasn't liking the wine. And eventually we had a discussion where I was like, I don't know, like, I haven't really thought of it. I don't know. I've never really drank. I don't know what to do. That quickly changed.
Is that what like bad girls do?
No, I just don't think I knew. I didn't
Yeah.
have
Okay.
social
So it wasn't.
experiences where it wasn't like, oh, I shouldn't drink. I just didn't know first off, I've never really felt drunk. So I didn't know, oh, people drink to get a little tipsy or to have this feeling, so I was never really getting to that point. So it was more just the sipping of this alcohol that I was just like, I didn't have enough experiences where people sat around and had a glass of wine, or people did, that's what I'm saying skating did. I mean, my life was so regimented. Training or touring, there was none of that.
Well, how do you explain the time that you were almost arrested?
How do you know this with the wristband?
How do you explain it?
Wait, I don't even know. I don't even think the story is out there, right? Wait, how did this happen? So I was on tour and I was in a like college town, and like the Stars and Ice cast and crew were all, I don't know, 15, 20 years older than me. But this was at a time where like I would go with them and I didn't drink. And then there was this one bar that had wristbands, and I put the wristband on, and then I'm sitting there with everyone. And I mean, I promise you, I never drank. I mean, we're talking about when I was 23, I couldn't get through the glass of wine. And I was like playing with the wristband and it came off. And then the guy at the bar came and got me and took me into a room and had me do a breathalyzer. And I had to call my dad. They didn't arrest me, of course, but if this is what you're talking about, this is the only time that I've been close to them telling me like the cops were coming for me. Yeah.
I could just imagine. I mean, like when these big eyes, like, no, I don't know.
I was so upset too, because I was like, oh my God, this, like, how do I get out of this one now?
So you don't break many rules.
No, I'm not a rule breaker. I don't like breaking rules.
Mm-hmm. And this is why, I mean, your whole life has been aligned with that principle. And then to have, back to our first part of our conversation, Camila, be out there with the rules being broken. It was
Broken.
your conscience was clear. You're
Mhm.
like, this is
Yeah.
not how we're
This
supposed to
is
do
not
this.
right.
And I lived my life according to the rules.
Yep. And what's funny about that is it's something that I've tried to in my life be more of a rule breaker, because I have always been so by the book that in my like late 20s, I really tried to experience life in a slightly different way where it didn't always have to be by the book, which I actually like and enjoy. And I think I was able to do in certain ways.
So how do you get wild? How
Well,
do you
for
let?
me, it was just like breaking the rule. I remember I like dated someone in LA for a while, and then the right thing to do was to stay there and heal and whatever. And I had gone to New York for Christmas, and I was like, I think I want to live in New York. And then I was like, okay, I'm not going to go home. I'm just going to find an apartment and stay here, which is definitely not the way I like to do things. And I would have thought I'm running away from like whatever. I would have thought all of these things, and this is just silly and impulsive, and I did it. And New Year's Eve, I moved into an apartment that I stayed in for 6 years. It's where I met my husband eventually, and that's an example.
Was that your rebellion phase?
Yeah, it was. What's
Okay.
crazy, that was 28. I was like 28 years old when I was rebelling.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, either in like an elite sport, as we both know, that it either happens really young
Right.
because like the crowd is really progressive and they're feeding drinks
Mhm.
to the kid that didn't
Right.
go. You didn't go to high school, right?
No, I went
No,
through
right.
6th grade,
Yeah.
and then
So
I was homeschooled.
most, I think most people know that, but like half of the adventure action sport worlds, many Olympians, well, maybe it's changing a little bit, like homeschooling, maybe,
Right.
like, did you graduate? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
did.
mean,
So that was the good thing. My dad was very upset about the schooling situation. So
yeah,
I never did proper homeschool. I had tutors, and I was enrolled into my high
yeah,
school.
it's hard.
So
Yeah, it's tough. So it's either really late or it's really
mhm,
early, and
mhm.
it's usually not on a normal cadence to most
Yeah,
folks.
mine was late, 28.
Okay.
And even
So
then it wasn't so risky, but
no, it certainly wasn't. All right. So the yin and yang, right? The light and
Mhm.
the dark. You over rotate on light. Okay. So help me out. You
No, but I feel like
where's the
really,
dark side? Oh, come on.
I feel like though all of
No,
this is
no, no,
not the norm though, is it? Like
no,
I
but it's
feel
no, but it's still angelically light, right? And I
yeah.
don't, yeah, like, so I'm
Yeah.
trying to understand the other side of you. We all have the light and the dark, and
Yeah.
people that don't know the other side, I start to get a little nervous.
Well, no. See, what's so funny is I always feel like I'm the person that has all this complex shit.
Oh, okay. Oh, so now you use the cuss word.
Sorry. No, but I do. I do. I feel like if you think about it, like the things I've said about myself of being like anxious or a worry wart.
Yeah.
So probably you just haven't really we didn't dive in enough on those
No, we
things. But I
didn't.
think like the heart, like the dark side, I think would be all along those. Like I've never really experienced. I feel like when I wake up, I feel very like level-headed. I'm always excited for the day to happen. I've never really experienced depression until recently, where I don't even know if I'm not public yet of talking about it, but the hardest years of my life have been the last 3 with something that I've been going through. And I just think like for me, my darker stuff is the anxiety, this strange like delayed world that I came into from 20 years in a really messed up sport, you
Mhm,
know. Yeah,
mhm,
I think that probably the most complex part of me would be the anxiety,
mhm.
the
Yeah.
the worry. I definitely err on the side of being a hypochondriac, which is not fun at all.
Mm-mm.
And that can be
That's
challenging.
exhausting. That's exhausting.
It's exhausting.
Okay, Tara. All right. All right.
Yeah.
So there's this other side of you. Yeah.
I think the anxious side of me is the like always worrying about something.
And I am not asking you about what you're not wanting to be public with. I'm not asking you that. I do want to know, though, how you navigated some of the predators in your world. So we can create space here, and I'm not saying it has anything to do with what you're traumatized by, or not, I didn't say traumatized. You didn't say that,
No,
but like you're working through.
I'm definitely traumatized by it. It's something
Okay.
I was not expecting to deal with in my life, and I'm full in it.
Yeah. Well, if something's enduring for 3 years,
Yes,
my antenna go up like, okay, there's some sort of trauma that we're working through. And then I do want to understand that part. And I also want to understand somehow, I think it'd be a long fight if we had equal skills and size or whatever. Like, I think that you've got a fighter in you. And I'm wondering if that fighter has a little bit of the dark side in it. Or maybe it's a white light.
I love all this. This is so fascinating. I want you to like analyze me in every way possible right now. Go for it.
We're doing it. Is that fighter in you? Is it the white knight or the dark knight?
But what do you mean the fighter?
That part of you that's like, and it's not fucking going down like this.
Yeah, I mean, how would I describe that fighter? I'm never like angry.
Okay,
I'm
so
never
it's not a savage. It's not a
no. It's more stubborn. It's more like 100% this is going to happen. It's going to happen my way. I'm going to force it to happen. Like my best girlfriend always says, like, that's how she will describe me. She's like, there is a round hole and there is a square peg, and you will say, Allie, you need to put that in the round hole, and you will not stop until somehow magically the hole turns from like a circle to a square. She's like, I don't know how you do it, but you will force a situation to happen.
Okay.
So cool. I think my fighter in that would be that I'm stubborn in that way of I will make it happen.
Okay.
But then I think like that's maybe where that magical thing pushes that, because I'm like, oh, I have the ability to to do it, even though it seems impossible.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay.
But and what's interesting is what I have been going through is the realization of like the first time in my life learning patience, and that some things are so out of your control that like you cannot do that.
Well, if you want me to kind of take it another level, you are of course going to meet this dragon. Perfectionism, all of the kind of rigidity from your external life that led you to be performatively beautiful, right? And then that's oftentimes from this unsettled internal experience. You can call it anxiety, worry, whatever, but that lack of control is why we try to exert it in our external world. And so of course you're going to meet this dragon.
Yeah. And it's been like, it's actually so interesting. I've been going to acupuncture and I love it because she will always talk about the masculine and the feminine energy, and how that I have all this masculine energy and that I need to really tap into the like patience, that I can't change things energy. And I've actually loved it. Like through this whole experience, it's been really interesting. And like what I've gone through I'm sorry being so vague, but it is just something.
It's okay.
Yeah, so personal at this point that I'm not ready to share. But what I've gone through, I feel that is the hardest thing that I've done in my life. 100%. If I make it through this, it's by far the thing that's changed me the most. That's given me a new perspective on life. It's just completely changed me I think in a positive way.
And when you zoom forward and you access the wise woman in you, and let's go 30 years in the future, okay, whatever age you might be there, I think in your 60s, but I don't know your age. Like, so is that right?
I'm 39.
Yeah. Okay. So you're up in your 60s now. You look back. What does the wise woman in you say to you right now?
Oh, well, I hope that she's like, I've got some good news for you. But I think she would say to me that, I actually hope she would say, should preface it with, you've kind of, you're like floundering, you're all over the place, but you're doing it the right way. And you're just going through it, you're figuring out life, you're wanting to be open and understand yourself and become, a better version of yourself. And it's like the way to life, essentially. In my head, I hope she would, like, that's how I see life. So I hope she would say that. But I think even from what I'm learning is just, again, like the release of the perfectionist side of me is sometimes, like, maybe she would say that, like, that freeing behavior will like open up so much more to you and so much more happiness and, so much more just living in whatever that moment gives you, whether it's good or it's bad, instead of, and again, I think that's what I always have struggled with, is trying to make things good. But I've even learned through what I'm going through now that even through the bad, I'm like, life's still good. And it's like, okay to not be perfect, and it's okay not to have the answer, and it's okay, to not know what you're doing. I mean, that's another thing though. I will say, through my entire life, I feel like I'm always winging it. As much as I like to have these, yeah, I do. I think sometimes even when I started commentating, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I want to do this, but I'm going to wing it. When I was acting, I'd be like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just going to wing it. So, I mean, I hope that's not a terrible way to go through life, but it's somehow like, I just sometimes just wing shit.
Well, okay, a couple things. One is, and let's work backwards. One is you counterbalance that with high preparation. And
Right.
then I think you love the athlete in you, the person who loves the edge
Mhm.
shows up without a tight script, and then it forces you, it's a forcing function to go home, to get
Mhm.
to the pure signal and to express from there. And what comes out will be, even if it's messy, authentic.
Yeah,
And if
which
even if there's
somehow
a
seems
stumble,
okay to me.
that's right, right? And so I think you love the forcing function, all the planning, all the work, da da da,
Yeah.
and then to show up, the winging it is actually the mechanism of the art. And
Yeah.
so, yeah,
That's so
I think
interesting.
yeah, I think it makes perfect sense for you. And then I also think that that tape that you just played about from your wise woman, it yes, it's
Really?
so. Then I say to you, everything you need is already inside you. It's already in there. Trust more,
I
love
love
more.
it.
Trust
Yep.
more and love more. Trust more and practice that every day. Trust more, letting go, and then
Yep.
love more, trust more, love more. I think it's those two things.
I mean, this has been like, I love this. Like, I could just ask you a million. I want to know everything about myself.
You are
Just
too
tell me.
funny. You are awesome. Listen, this is great. I know we almost did a project together
Yeah,
earlier, and then I hope we have the chance to do
me
something.
too.
Yeah,
I would
it'd be
love to
really
that. We
fun.
should even think of something that we could do.
That
Like,
would be awesome.
seriously, I'm so fascinated by all of this. And okay, well, wait, I have a question for you first. So,
Okay, yeah.
like, so hearing all of this about me, what do you think made it made me tick, or like made an Olympic champion?
I think if I could take a pass at this, I think that you have the right level of neuroticism.
Yeah.
um, you are low on agreeableness because
Mhm.
you think things through and then you agree if it makes sense. You're highly conscientious. You're open to experiences, but they
Mhm.
have to make sense to the mission that you're on. I think that you've got this incredible ability to deeply focus. I've felt it in this listening that you've had. So you know how to focus deeply. Um, your ability to stay positive, even when it's hard, is one of
Mhm.
your core crown jewels. It's one of the core assets, crown jewels. Um, I think you have a high level of autonomy. So you choose the high level of efficacy, which is I feel powerful in my life.
Mhm.
Your parents gave you the first or the second. You earn the second, the autonomy. Relationships are intact; they're meaningful to you,
Mhm.
and you know that you have something special, and you've worked really hard to express those. So, in essence, that's the way I've understood you: high moral compass, high work ethic, those other characteristics that I mentioned, and you
But
just kind of put all that
doesn't
together.
like the perfectionism and the anxiety and all of that,
That's the
like what did that
neuroticism.
stem from?
That's the
Like that has to be the
neuroticism.
bad. Okay.
That was so why would somebody have high neuroticism? So that part of the narrative I don't know. It's likely has to do with dad not being home and the compromise you've had in the family structure where
Mhm.
you went away, they were
Mhm.
supporting you, they
Mhm.
took a large presence in your life,
Mhm.
and there was like this underlying current of like, hey, it's on the line. I'm not going to
It's
blow
on the
this for
line.
the
Yeah.
family. I'm not going to blow this
Yeah.
for the family. So I'm going to work really hard. Things got to be right. Things got to be perfect. And I'm kind of the boss here.
Mhm.
But you're only 9, 12,
Yeah.
and you are not suited to be the boss.
Equipped to
So
do that.
then that's where the neuroticism comes from.
Yeah.
And so that's a unique experience that highly skilled people at a young age have. And the
Yeah.
other thing that we didn't talk about, which is it would be highly likely that you knew that you were in control of many adults around you.
I
And
was
when
just gonna say, like, thing that makes me anxious even talking about that is like, I think probably when I was saying like being so young was like when I would step out on these competitions, it was like the entire US figure skating, the entire, my coaching team, so many people I felt like I was, they were behind me and I had to do this.
That's right. Yeah. So that's where all this neuroticism. It's like you were wearing shoes that were too big, but
Mhm.
somehow you were wearing them, and like
Yeah.
it was working, but they're really too big for you.
Really too
And
big. Yeah.
yeah, right. And so listen, you double down on the moral code. And so that's the thing that has been one of the great assets that's carried health for your through your adult life is your
Mhm.
moral compass and moral code. So I
That's
hope that's
interesting.
close. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This was so much fun.
This was great. I've enjoyed every minute of it, and I can't wait to connect with you in some other way, in some other form. And so, thank you for the gift of time, honesty, and getting right up on the edge to the truth here. So, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.